Pablo, Pablo, Pablo.
It's not that kind of show. Not that kind of show. All right. Computer Stuffs by Sarah Porter. I didn't think that many couples would go see 50 Shades of Grey on Valentine's Day. But boy, oh boy, I was wrong. There was an empty courtesy seat between each couple so no one would get elbowed while hanging out while the lights were dimmed. My two girlfriends and I were those jerks who'd gone to laugh at the film before getting rip-roaring drunk in honor of our February birthdays and our loneliness. One of us was in a long-distance relationship with a dude that wasn't here. One of us was still talking to her a-hole ex-boyfriend on the other side of the country. And one of us, me, hadn't gotten laid since moving to Los Angeles. It had been 6 weeks. I hadn't felt bad about it at all until my roommate said, "Oh my God, you haven't gotten any action since moving here?" And then pouted on my behalf. And later told me not to have sex in the apartment that I was paying her to sublet. We did not stay to watch the credits roll, the lights go up, the couples take their hands or other body parts out of each other's pants. We headed straight for the bar as quickly as we could, letting our friends know we were on our way. It was our joint birthday party to which we'd invited all of our friends, but only the single ones showed up. Scanned the room for cute guys, wondering if the party was a little more sad than it would have been any other weekend. The bar held no prospects, until this girl Shannon came up to me and said, "Dylan's friend thinks you're cute." I looked towards Dylan, and eyed the guys on either side of him. Neither of them was worth any effort. "He thinks I'm cute? He can buy me a drink," I said, gesturing with my beer in one hand, only sort of noticing it slosh all over my arm. Shannon must have told the guy what I said because he wound his way towards me when my drink was getting low. "I'm the interloper," he should have said instead of his real name, and then asked, "What are you drinking?" "Blue Moon," I said. I'd been legally allowed to drink for a year and had spent those 365 days figuring out which cheap beer would give me a slice of fruit so I could convince myself it could compete with a fancy $12 cocktail. I downed the backwash at the bottom of my beer and placed it on the counter so I'd be ready to receive the new one when the interloper came from the bar. He talked about repossessing cars in high school, getting kicked out of the house by his mom, dropping out of college. He kept scrunching up his face and sticking his tongue out, but I was too drunk to catch what he'd say that would make him cause to make that face. He was wearing a plain black button-up and unflattering jeans, and I wasn't that interested, but it had been 6 weeks and nobody had bought me a beer in LA yet, and according to my 35-year-old roommate, that was just plain sad. Then he talked about his job developing websites. Suddenly, I saw a golden light shining around him. Finally, someone who could help me with my greatest work problem. My boss mistakenly thought I could fix technology. I was hired to be a receptionist at a literary management company because I was cute on the phone. They did not ask about my ability to solve technological problems and yet still expected me to do so because they'd once had a receptionist who could. The internet went down multiple times a day. Somebody couldn't enlarge his Word doc windows, and another guy couldn't connect his alarmingly greasy laptop to a wireless printer. As if I could do any of those things. I spent hours on the phone with AT&T and tried to connect our ancient computers to be accessed remotely by a tech guy, but they wouldn't let me bring anyone into the office because it would be too expensive. I cried in my car every other day on my lunch break, feeling completely incompetent at being an employed adult. As the interloper droned on about teaching himself how to code, I gazed into the future like Raven and saw him swinging by my office after work, fixing all of the issues I've been crying over for weeks and then, kissing for a bit. It would be a very lucrative relationship. "Should I ask for your number?" he asked, and I almost shouted yes back at him, but I nodded instead. The night was winding down and everyone was pulling out their phones to figure out rides home. I opened up Uber for the first time, accustomed to public transportation in Boston where I lived for the last 4 years. The MBTA may be slow, old, and smelly, but it meant I never had to use a ride-sharing service. What are these little cell phones? I asked, squinting to make my drunk eyes focus on the app. The interloper's eyes rolled back at his head in aggravated shock, and then he pulled me into his Uber with his roommates. "We'll drop you off on the way to the 10, he said. What a gent, I thought. As I got out of the car outside of my apartment, I said, "You should call me." "I probably will," he said, and then added, "Happy Valentine's Day." I smiled, hopefully coyly, over my shoulder as I walked away. We went on a few dates, and he only ever talked about himself, but I knew if we just kept dating, he'd eventually come to my office and fix the Wi-Fi. A few weeks after we met, we were all out at a bar, and he said, "This got way too intense, too fast. I don't even really know you." "That's because you never asked me about myself," I thought. But I didn't want to argue. Think of the Wi-Fi. He was breaking up with me, but we hadn't even gotten to the point where he cured my technophobia. The last month had been a waste. I've been so hopeful that my boss would stop yelling at me and everyone would love my convenient boyfriend who knew computer stuffs. And now all of my dreams were crushed in a dive bar. I ran to the bathroom to cry drunken tears of work anxiety, and then walked home because I still didn't know how to use the Uber app. The interloper followed Shannon, the girl who introduced us. Home, he followed her and desperately tried to make out with her as she shouted no at him, thus inspiring the interloper nickname. We have neither seen nor spoken to him since. I quit the job where everyone yelled at me when the internet was out. One of my first days at my new job, I was asked to replace the batteries in my boss's wireless keyboard. "It's still saying low battery," she said. My other boss went to go and check it out. "Sarah, you put the batteries in backwards," he said. My stomach twisted into a familiar knot of technology anxiety as we made eye contact. We both laughed. Silly me.